Hey, there we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christopher DeLaney. I'm giving my first video discussion post here from my classroom. It's my planning period. I got, John Winthrop behind me, who we're going to be talking about today. Hey, listen, little quick classroom tour. I love my classroom, but currently right now I have stuff everywhere. I got all kind of like giant, where am I at? Here's more of my finger, giant dice back there. All right, I'm the head of student government. So I got all kind of stuff up here for the homecoming dance this week. It is Spirit Week across the back of my room. I think currently I have about 2,000 packages of mashed potatoes. My room is currently a mess right now. All of my reading, all right, for the week for this class that I've been working on, but hey, what a better place to go ahead, work on this video post than in my classroom for the day. So hopefully you guys find this a little entertaining. Let's talk a little bit this week about John Winthrop. So in 1630, John Winthrop, charter member of the Massachusetts Bay Company, made his way to New England. Winthrop was a devout Puritan and emerged as the founding philosopher for early colonial Puritan theology. Therefore, in this week's discussion thread on recent scholarship, I analyzed Laurel Thatcher's, article, John Winthrop, City of Women. I thought that was going to be an interesting one. The article delves into Winthrop's supposed patriarchal, iron-fisted rule of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. His strict adherence to Puritan traditions has been viewed as that crystallizing factor in the subjection of women, in the Puritan colonies. And I think we've kind of seen some of that already in some of our readings. Thatcher, however, makes the unique argument that when compared with the context of the times, Winthrop did more to encourage female assertiveness than he actually did to hinder it. That being said, Thatcher makes no allusions to the fact that Winthrop was a Puritan through and through. All right. He's not necessarily, she's not going into this concept that he was, somebody who's going to fight for women's rights, but through his actions, he actually furthers women, all right, as opposed to hindering them. Winthrop did not actively seek to challenge social conventions, but rather he nurtured the role of women through his actions and deplored the men who were tasked with their keeping, as was within the context of the time. Thatcher uses stories from Winthrop's personal journals. That's where they're going to go ahead and get, most of their research to justify his arguments. In essence, Thatcher argues that Winthrop may have disliked, even feared strong women, and I'm using this as a quote, but he could not ignore them, nor could he overlook the behavior of men who abused and abandoned those that were dependent on their care. All right. There's a strong notion that Winthrop was going to go ahead and fear these strong women, as we'll go ahead and see, but he can't ignore them. They were a driving force, within society that he, lived, and it's through his actions there that in some instances, it can be argued that they actually, I guess, were further, or maybe at least not, hindered as much as historians have put it. Most striking to me was Thatcher's use of the story, Robert Keene and Elizabeth Sherman, their story of, a lost sow. So Keene impounded a stray sow, kept it with his own livestock, and subsequently slaughtered the animal when it came to slaughtering time. Keene was a wealthy merchant from Boston, and his word could have really easily been enough to sway any general court, in his favor because of his wealth, because of his status. Though when Sherman insisted on dragging out the affair, no doubt, to her growing supporters, she was getting a lot of people to back her and her cause about this missing pig, and obviously a desire to be compensated for the losses, all right, of this slaughtered sow. Despite that outrage that Winthrop is going to go ahead and have when the court allows this woman to go ahead and testify under oath, nevertheless, Winthrop allowed the proceedings to continue. And they continued for years. This is going to be this large spectacle, between Keene as well as Elizabeth Sherman. And despite the following, I should say the final rulings being basically a split decision in this case, Thatcher's use all right, of Winthrop's story shows that an assertive woman can surely pursue justice even against some of the wealthiest men that were out there. All right, hence you see this concept of, women standing, being a little further, being allowed to testify, allowing that, public spectacle as it was to continue. Historian John Shar corroborates Thatcher's argument in some further research that I did. In his article, Liberty, Authority, Community, and the Political Thoughts of John Winthrop, Shar asserts that even though Winthrop seemed to divide women into two categories, I mean, very patriarchal. He had the harlot, all right, and you had the good wife. There's really no in between there. The political and religious authority that they expressed was greater in Winthrop's Massachusetts than basically everywhere else in the Anglo-European world. And even though Winthrop is going to go ahead and only see these women as one of two ways, really some of the freedoms that they are going to go ahead and have is going to be far and above, all right, what some of the rest of the world was, at least the Anglo-European world was at the time. We have to keep that context in mind when you analyze these documents. With this said, looking at the incident with Sherman and Keene, no analysis of Winthrop is complete without, investigating his, proceedings with Anne Hutchinson. That's what he's going to be most known for. So I looked into a new article, Lisa McGonigal's article, The Criminal Trial of Anne Hutchinson, Ritual, Religion, and Law. And it delves into the trial itself and it highlights the controversial nature of the proceedings. And when Winthrop was faced with what he thought was basically dissension from an individual with this unprecedented knowledge of the Bible, and probably to Winthrop more horrific was this unprecedented, knowledge of the Bible from a woman. He organized the time-honored tradition for the Puritans, which was basically going to be this trial, to handle the disobedience. McGonigal argues that the trial was a stormy public trial. We've seen that a lot with some of the videos that we watched last week. The flagrantly exceeded its conventional institutional boundaries, even according to the nascent framework of 17th century New England law. And I use that as a quote again. McGonigal is really just saying that trial itself, was this huge spectacle that it just didn't need to be. And it was a spectacle, all right, simply because of this dissension from a woman, all right, who was challenging that, religious but also political authority, all right, of Winthrop, and those Puritans at the time. Another historian I read this week, Edmund Morgan, also argues that Anne Hutchinson's trial, and again, a proceeding that scarcely deserves to be dignified by the name and indignation, as its unfairness is commendable. For members of modern states founded on self-government should be acutely conscious of the values of the forms of justice. All right, they basically are saying, Morgan here, that the Puritans who came here, who, were very clearly conscious of justice, of escaping religious, trials and tribulations, should not have treated, this trial with Hutchinson, in such an unfair mockery. And it goes on and continues, to Morgan, Hutchinson was this idea of the mother of the 20th century woman, okay? This assertive woman, who was going to go ahead and not back down. Winthrop, though, stood juxtaposed to asserting herself. Oh, let me make sure I stay in this call when I'm recording this. There we go. Asserting herself not just for her religious convictions, but it's a step forward for the sex as well. So in all, Thatcher expertly, reading this article this week, argues his unique thesis that Winthrop, while upholding Puritan patriarchal values, nevertheless helped women by encouraging them to be outspoken. And while I personally think, the jury is still out on this argument, I don't fully, delve into and believe what Thatcher is saying here, considering there's a mountain of evidence against Winthrop when it comes to at least to, gender inequality here. It's really, though, so epically important, excuse me, to understand Winthrop and understand, what happened in the context, in the age of the time, and not to reflect on it based upon, our own ideas of what is equal. We can't project back as historians in that way. We have to understand it in the historic context of what else was happening in the world at that time. Nevertheless, reading Thatcher's argument makes me acutely aware of the gender issues that underlie at least the early Puritan colonies. All right, and how these gender issues are going to then perpetuate, through, this Christian heritage. All right, guys, this has been a fascinating study for me. I will go ahead and hope you guys enjoyed, your reading this week, and hope you guys enjoyed this video as well. Please, oh please, wish me luck. I got homecoming this weekend. I am going to be exhausted. All right, and once that is done, I will be a very happy man again. But until then, I look forward to reading, or I should say, watching all of your videos this week, and having a little bit of a discourse with you guys in the following days. All right. Thank you so much. God bless. We'll talk soon. Bye. No, we're still recording. We're working. We're trying to shut it off. There we go.